Hmm. No. Oh, you startled me. Hello. Good evening. Well, you caught me. I was doing some important show research, but that's okay. That's what we do here at Retro Trekkers. And you're probably wondering right about now, what's Joe doing on screen? This is Captain John's time. Where's that handsome face of Captain John? Well, we're going to explain that and many other things after the intro. So, Captain, roll that beautiful Retro Trekkers footage. Well, hello, and again, welcome to this first edition of Vintage Voyages. Now, you're asking yourself, what exactly is a vintage voyage? Well, you know, once upon a time, there was a great show called Starbase 80, which eventually became this show. There are many classic episodes of Starbase 80, many of which have not been seen in some time, many of which just need a little bit more love and attention. So the vintage voyage we have for you tonight is one that was first broadcast 3 years ago. Then it was Captain John and Commander Flobo boys. He was then a commander. Now he's been promoted to admiral. And this is the first ever guest appearance of yours truly, Joe Townsel. So I hope you'll enjoy it as I have. Please feel free, as usual, to comment. John's backstage, commenting with you, chatting with you. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this first vintage voyage of Starbase 80, Voyager's Night.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to the big show. And I hope you're ready to discuss some Star Trek Voyager, as we do here at the old SB80. Not just Voyager, of course. Favorite Trek episodes is one of my favorite themes, and we do that as well. I don't do it alone. No. Sometimes. But I don't enjoy it. I only enjoy it when I have the best damn first officer in the fleet right here on the screen with me, ladies and gentlemen, the XO of SB80. Welcome, Commander Flobo boys.
So glad to be back here, Captain. How was your Thanksgiving? Did you replicate yourself a turkey or what?
We had... Hi, everybody. Captain John here. We'll be fast-forwarding through the ultra-boring Thanksgiving 2021 talk, and we'll be editing some things in the future just to keep things fun and moving. Anyway, enjoy the show, and you're welcome. Oh, I got to make it for you one of these days. Oh, I've found the recipe, man.
I better be good with a good Bajorian Hesperot, but it's all good, man. It's glad to be here.
Yes, right. Welcome back, our good friend, Joe Townsel. Joe, that's a terrible way. Oh, please, come aboard, sir. Come aboard. How are you?
Well, I'm doing wonderfully. Thanks for asking, John.
Fantastic.
Looking forward to talking some Star Trek with my two favorite officers.
Let's do that. I was very gratified after telling you which episode we were going to do that you actually are a fan of Star Trek Voyager. Can we talk a little bit about that?
My first officer hates everything.
I mean, honestly, there's the Star Trek Voyager, Deep Space Nine. I know Enterprise. The people who work on them, they all feel like we were the redheaded stepchild. Everyone kind of, didn't quite take to us, and that could be said about many different series. It is very true in this series. It was hard for, I guess they started on UPN. They started on UPN. It was hard for them to get as big an audience as a Star Trek series normally got. And very popular series had preceded them in syndication, which almost everybody could get almost everybody could get at the time. So here we are looking at Voyager. This is the 5th season and the first episode. And so there's a lot of intention that goes into the 5th season. What did you feel about where we were at this point? 7 of 9 has joined the crew. All of the Maquis officers have integrated a long time ago. There's very little going on that's brand new. Hey, Joshua, thanks for joining us, pal. Do you remember at this point watching the show, and if so, do you have any real memories of what your attitude was at this point about Voyager? Joe, let's go with you.
Okay, since I just chimed right in. No, seriously, I mean, that's a great question, John. I'll tell you why I think so, because to me, up to this point, in terms of the way the show operated, and I'm talking, when I say the show, Star Trek is one big entity.
Yeah.
I don't really draw much of a distinction between the series. I just think it's all one continuity. All one flows from one to the next. And I think that continues on with Discovery, Picard, and the upcoming Strange New World. So
spicy take.
Thank you, sir.
No, that's a good attitude.
Because everyone's like, it's
so
not real Star
history,
Trek, bro. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Yeah. People like to draw the lines. Yeah. But I
never have. So when people ask me what's your favorite, I say, I don't have one. It's all my favorite. So deal with that. Yeah. But having said that, I think given the entire history, and we look at the behind the scenes and the way the show operates, I think what made this very unique going into the 5th season of Voyager was that it was the first in many years since the Best of Both Worlds, TNG, that didn't resolve a cliffhanger from a previous season.
Right.
So basically, so it kind of said, okay, right off the tone, as far as the episode of Night, it said this is isolated. And that's what really strengthened this particular season premiere, especially because, they're more alone than ever.
Yeah. And
it just gave you that feeling right off the bat from the first scene.
Yeah.
Well, not from the first scene. After Captain Proton, then after that.
Right. I mean, you're right, though. They establish it very quickly in this episode. And, apparently there was some blowback at the time. I was reading about this, that a lot of people felt, okay, so you're starting off season number 5, not with a bang, but with this long, depressed, like staring out a window, like kind of moment. Flobo, I know you're not. I know. Have you seen a whole lot of Voyager? You've seen.
I've seen episodes selected. So like the ones we do on the show. I've seen the one The Rock was on. I saw the worst Voyager episode ever, quote unquote, when they became salamanders. So look, I've seen episodes, but never. And I'm glad you asked me that question because I felt like I was more in that camp. Not as if the episode was bad, but like I'm thinking, wow, season premiere, usually some kind of big threat, a big bad. I guess I'm just kind of trained of like that post. MTV generation kind of television, right? But this was kind of like The Lightless Black. This felt like could have been deep in season 2 when the thrill has been gone, but you're still here. So it took me a while to get used to things. And the first scene we'll get into, the Captain Proton stuff, was kind of interesting. But to me, it was an odd choice, a very muted choice to start a season that way.
One of the things that they're trying to get across is a reality of space travel, which is there are long voids of nothing, to the point where if you special circumstances they have in this particular case, the theta radiation is pretty much muting their sensors. Therefore, they're not taking in anything. No light, no presence of any other objects. At one point, I think Chakotay says, if it wasn't for the sensors, we wouldn't even know we were moving at warp speed. Mm-hmm. And that is a thing in space, the emptiness. And how people are going to deal with that and the quietness and the nothingness. I kind of feel like they did a really good job. I hate that soft language. I feel like they did a good job letting us know Nothing is going on. That's kind of freaky. And one of the ways they exemplify that is pretty quickly we learn that the captain has not been spending time seeing anyone, that she's kind of on her own.
Talk about subverting expectations. I mean, you zoom in on this, cheesy 30s-ish, serial, and you think, well, I guess it's going to be another one of those fun, frolicky, holodeck episodes. And then within a few minutes, you realize, nope, that ain't it at all. We got something entirely different going on here. And for the first appearance of Captain Proton, he would come back a couple times, as I recall. It was a lot of fun. And of course, not jumping ahead here, but I think probably the funniest line in this whole episode, in which there weren't a lot of funny lines because of the nature of it. 7 or 9 reaching into, this Satan robot and pulling out his wires and saying, "Robot has been neutralized. May I leave now?" Absolute hilarious line from 7. But again, what a great way to start this episode in particular, because from then we go to the darkness of where they are.
Right. There is a very real moment that ends this scene where the doctor comes in. He's scheduled to have the next holographic session, and so he's, we've got the bickering children fighting over control of the television. Again, too much information from my childhood. Yes, and then we get into it with Commander Chakotay, and Commander Chakotay is doing all of the logging, I guess is the verb. He's letting us know where we are, what's going on, and here we are in what the crew calls the void, and then we go into probably one of my favorite meetings in the briefing room of all of Star Trek, where everybody's pretty much going, nothing's new, nothing's changed. We're in a void.
Could have been an email. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Now, if anything, the person who really gets something done during this meeting is Neelix. Flobo, I'm always entertained.
I'm not a fan.
No,
I am always entertained by throwing Neelix at you. What did you think of this little meeting? And tell the folks what you think of Neelix.
I was like, shut up, Neelix, with your stupid ideas that make sense. I'm so tired of you. Replicate curtains, you're so funny. Look, I get it. He's supposed to be the comic relief, but even the comic relief is going through some stuff. But I'm just 5 seasons in, and there was an executive at Paramount that was like, that Neelix guy, build everything around him. 5 years in? Ugh.
Joe, how do you feel about Neelix?
I guess I'm not as critical as Neelix as Flobo seems to be, but
no one is.
No one is.
Let's put it this way: if he was actual Starfleet, I might have a bigger problem with him. But the fact he was just kind of like a happy-go-lucky scavenger when they first saw him,
right?
And they took him on board. It kind of lends an excuse to it. And I think he's actually better. Not to denigrate her character, but I think he's better without Kes. I think the replacement of Kes at that point was probably a good idea, although I have no issues with her or her character. But no, I think used sparingly. And he was used to great effect in this episode, as you're suggesting, both in the briefing, Flobo, and later on when his phobia starts setting in a little bit. I thought that was very effective as well. So. Sorry, don't have a big problem with the Neelix character. Use sparingly. Put it that way.
Damn, Joe, you're so dang positive. Oh.
I'm sorry, Flobo. Give me a chance. I'll get negative on you.
Oh, good. Let's push you there. Let's get you over there. That's actually one of the interesting things about Neelix. He does rub a lot of people the wrong way. It's not just you, Flobo. My wife, once she got like her 7th or 8th Neelix heavy episode of Voyager, she walked away and never looked back.
She's a keeper. You should probably keep married to her.
Smart lady. And I have to say, I've actually met Ethan Phillips. He's a lovely man. He's a fantastic guy.
Oh, sure.
Very funny. but the way things are set up in Star Trek, his presence is a little unusual. Now, here's the thing. He is the morale officer. And up to this point on the show, I never thought they needed one. And now it does seem that we really do need one, because he's got the best ideas. And here he is. I think I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit in the sense of I think he's the most, like, the one who does the most feeling. I wouldn't say he's the heart of the show, but he is the guy who goes through stuff. And what happens is he starts getting panic attacks.
I can't believe I'm saying this, because I know I'm going to hate myself for saying this, but I almost feel like that was enough to make its own episode. Having someone so happy-go-lucky go through the spiral in this. But you've already presented Janeway not being around at the time. You got some Captain Proton action. You're in the Lightless Black. I felt like it was tacked on. So because of that, it becomes not comedy, but it's like, oh yeah, that too. So I can't believe I'm advocating for more Neelix episodes, but I kind of wish that was like sliced off.
We find out that what he has is called nihil phobia. One of my favorite lines is the doctor saying, something like nihil phobia. It's the fear of nothing, or in more general terms, the fear of nothing.
Yeah.
And of course, actually, I've never asked you guys how you feel about the doctor. Flobo, how do you feel about the EMH?
You know what? The fact that it's a hologram is kind of weird to me, but yeah, if I was a doctor on that ship, I'd be that surly also. Which is why I like Lower Deck so much, because the Kana is that bad too. She's like, whatever.
I guess doctors can be surly in Star Trek. We do know this.
Absolutely. Look, I don't get me wrong. I love me some Kluber and Discovery. Yeah. It's fine, but like, really, you're on this ship and people are shot to sick bay every day, except for Tasha every day. So you're kind of like, you get burnt out. So I'll be burnt out too. Justice for Tasha.
Well, and I guess we'll get to some of my negative reactions if it goes there, but I got to continue with the positivity for now. I'll go on board and say that I think that the Doctor in Voyager is the most effective since McCoy.
Oh my gosh. Again, let me think about that.
And not to take away from Crusher or Bashir that came before him.
Yeah.
Or those that came after, but no, I mean, just because of those reasons. I mean, the fact that he is basically a total fish out of water with the rest of the crew because of the nature of his existence. Case in point, look at all the Voyager standard episodes that centered around him to some degree.
Right.
And, because he was that effective in terms of his character. So
right.
you definitely have a big fan. Of course, Picardo's performance, brings that home in the writing. But I really dig this Doctor a lot.
Yeah, he's more independent now. They've got that little thing on his arm so he can walk around from
mobile emitter,
yeah. Which is adorable, because now we get I think like those McCoy scenes where the Doctor for some reason is on the bridge wisecracking. I love that. That's very Star Trek. He's also got a really great relationship with Seven of Nine, which let me stop the train again. Let's talk about Seven of Nine. I feel like this woman's chest is shoved into every possible framing of the show.
Well, look, I mean, it's I don't think it's any secret that Jerry Ryan was brought on for sex appeal, but I think she rose above that a lot by basically creating a character that has stood the test of time and was such a standout. Again, not to take away from Jennifer Lean and Kess, but right. It was much more interesting when they went that direction. So much more interesting, in fact, that they were. I don't know if the rumor is true, but they actually thought about firing Marina Sirtis from Star Trek Nemesis and putting Jerry in there.
Oh my god!
And they definitely brought her back for Picard. Did you not know that?
Yeah, I did not know that. Holy cow, that's scandalous.
Yeah. Obviously, she's a gorgeous woman, and that's there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if it had just been that,
yeah,
I think it would have been pretty short lived. She would have been relegated to the background pretty quickly if she just been eye candy.
Yeah, there was a lot of work put into creating her character and bringing her character in. I always kind of appreciated that, but it is outrageous how direct it is. I mean, in the very first scene, you've got Constance Goodhart, who is the secretary of Captain Proton. Love it. And she is by oh right, her scream. Oh my god, her blood-curdling scream. Like one of the best. We're gonna watch the other Captain Proton episodes in the next few weeks. I'll get them in somewhere. But oh my god, her screaming is hilarious because it's so loud and it's so uncalled for. Kirsten Turner is the actress who plays her. And oh my gosh, again, what a what a body. At one point, Dr. Chaotica like leans down to talk to Harry, and basically in the center of the shot is Constant Goodhart's good heart. Underneath, barely detectable by the presence of the girls. And I only bring it up because I am a fixated weirdo, and B, because later Tom Paris tries to go back and finish the Hollow novel, and so he brings 7 of 9 with him, and why? And she is now Constance Goodhart, so it's like, oh, I needed a busty blonde, so just stand here.
Well, it's good casting.
Oh yeah, there you go. Look, I'm the worst at feminine criticism. I always got C in that class in film school. But I will say that every Star Trek show has that kind of thing, right? Kirk had the space aliens every week, and TNG has their own. And I don't know if you're into Kira DS9, but I kind of am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so you look at Voyager, and you're like, why isn't that working? But everyone tried throwing different things at the wall. And to Joe's credit, Joe's point, Jerry Ryan found a way to make a very one-dimensional character stick and go, look, this is going to be part of what it looks like to be semi-integrated or post-integrated. I guess she's not somewhere in Picard anymore, but
what we have here is a sort of pushed evolution of the show, and I'm not mad at it. I'm actually, especially historically speaking, I remember at the time people going, oh, you can tell that they don't have any faith in the show anymore because they had to bring in this really attractive woman, and maybe, but what does it matter? Aren't we? Yeah, I mean, as you guys point out, aren't we still getting a lot of Star Trek here?
Oh yeah, no, we always make fun of like Cousin Oliver and Scrappy Doo, but like The Rock was in Fast Five for a reason. You bring in people you need, and it makes people stick.
Well, and there is a precedent here. I mean, remember Worf being brought on to Deep Space Nine in season 4, same timing.
Yeah.
And by most people's views, there was nothing wrong with DS9 at that point, but adding Worf, brought a whole new dimension to it. He didn't take it over; it didn't become the Worf show.
Right.
But it added a whole new mythology to DS9 where arguably he fit better there than he did on TNG a lot of the time. So,
especially the way they had built up the character of Worf. He really loomed large in TNG. So it was, it did make a lot of sense to have more Worf, more to that story. And also, he became the guy who lived on the Defiant. He was like the human component. I'm sorry, the Klingon component to the Defiant.
Yeah, don't insult him.
Yeah, seriously. Wow. Ooh, getting very racist here.
Par for the course.
And now, a special holiday message from our sponsor.
Snowflakes dancing in silver air, joy and wonder are everywhere. Stories shared by firelight make Christmas happy, warm and bright. Ho, ho, horror, what's beneath the tree? Ho, ho, horror, gifts as far as you can see. Every story has a turn when the shadows come to call. Ho, 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 best gift of them all. Pages turning in the dark, tales that leave their lasting mark. Every gift wrapped just for you holds a nightmare coming true. The stories crawl across your mind, leave reality behind. When darkness falls on Christmas Eve, there's no escape, you cannot leave. Ho, 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 what's beneath the tree? creature comes to call. Ho, 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 claims us one and all.
We've got some great little scenes. We do have the Tom and B'Elanna argue in the mess hall, and that's, oh man, what a written argument. I've had a lot of arguments with the women in my life. None of them were ever as written as that one. What did you guys think of the argument over Dorada? That basically gets Neelix to fly off the handle too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it means to an end. I like B'Elanna. We need more B'Elanna shows or episodes or episodes on SB80 about her. I loved it, but you're right. It does seem kind of stilted. You know what I'm saying? It's all right, but because I guess that's like what plot E of this show. So it's like they do everything in this episode, man. They pack a lot in.
That is true. That is true, and I really appreciated that because it is the first episode of season 5. So, you know, what's everyone doing? Where is everyone? We do get a lot of that in this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as that exchange goes, I tend to agree. I think what we're seeing here is some of the first seeds of planting the B'Elanna and Tom dynamic that we, of course, would be permanent through the rest of the series. So I guess I see the value in it if you look at it the long term. But in terms of moving the story along, you know, I think we could have got Netflix, you know, wig out, you know, a slightly more effective way than just getting irritated with them fighting. But then again, it kind of gives you more of that atmosphere of the cabin fever that's setting in, you know, on Voyager at that point, you know.
Right. And B'Elanna has already said everybody in her division, everybody in engineering is going crazy with cabin fever. Yeah. And this is, as you point out, you're a writer, Joe. You're really good at this, pointing these things out. And yes, so now we're seeing all of this happening. There is a moment where Harry detects a little unusual. Is it the theta radiation? There's an unusual source of energy. And they alter course to go check it out. So that's kind of in the background. That's kind of happening. And then, boom, all of a sudden, they lose all their power. Things are now looking pretty dire. And honestly, that's kind of business as usual for Voyager. There actually is a moment where the captain says, in her depression, I actually miss running for our lives every single week.
So sad.
And the great line, what I wouldn't give for a few Borg cubes right now.
Anything, please. Distraction, diversion.
It's like Jarhead.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, going back to what's effective in the episode versus the stilted dialogue we had in the little argument scene, the second reference to the theta radiation is still routine. Even Paris, you know, says, "Oh, how exciting! Radiation. We go check that out." You know, well, as it turned out, it was pretty exciting after all. In not the best way at first.
yeah. And what we've got with this sudden shutdown of everything is everybody scrambles, and then, oh my gosh, there are aliens on board.
Creepy ones too.
Yes. Very creepy. Robert Picardo later on is recounting this episode at the convention, and he refers to them as aliens who look like Tootsie Rolls.
Tootsie Roll.
That's one man's opinion. When the aliens make themselves known, there are, I believe, 17 on board, if I remember correctly. Why do I remember that? I have no idea. A great moment.
It's so weird when they call them aliens, though. It's like, that's kind of like racist. Is it weird? Okay, maybe it's me.
That's a very good point.
Well, it's like going to Europe and calling them foreigners when you're there, I guess.
Yeah, these foreigners are everywhere.
So we're the foreigners.
Exactly.
We're the aliens here.
When Tom and Seven encounter an alien, he is inside their hologram. He is inside Captain Proton. and he actually like runs through Tom, like Tom's some sort of ghost or something. He runs into Tom, gives him like some crazy radiation burns, and Seven steps up to protect him. I wonder that this is very similar to that moment on First Contact where the Borg are on the Enterprise, and Captain Picard calls up his favorite hologram. There's a big scene from the 1930s. He lures them in, and he knows that one of the gangsters has a Tommy gun in a violin case, and he pulls it out and he shoots the actual Borg with it because he has disabled the safety protocols.
Yes.
Seven does that in this episode with one of these crazy old Captain Proton ray guns. Did either of you feel that was like, oh, is that a tribute to a previous Borg inside a hologram shooting somebody without the safety protocols moment? Is that just me?
You know, I didn't make that correlation until you just mentioned it, so I guess it wasn't me that made that connection previously. But now that you have, John, I mean, I think it's a very intentional or otherwise. It's a pretty handy connection there. I mean, you know, turning off the safety protocols to kill Borg in First Contact, and now the Borg doing the same thing to help her crewmate. Yeah, pretty clever.
What'd you think about that, Flobo?
I didn't. Again, I'm not nearly as involved as you guys are. I just figured, hey, look, turning off safety protocols and bringing out a giant weapon is very like mid-century or early mid-century gangster. You know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, I see that connection, Dixon Hill. I was like, yeah, the whole time I was looking for the crossover. I was like, is this going to be a crossover episode where, you know, the holodeck gets messed up and Picard's there? Oh, wait, no. So I was waiting for that.
I mean, here's the thing. I just got a really like, super nerdy thing in my head, which was, I wonder if when Picard did that, then it went into the Borg consciousness of, oh, that might happen. That could happen. And then that Borg consciousness later, when Seven of Nine was part of the Borg, it went into her mind because they all shared this hive mind. I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of reasons why that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, just a weird. But
imagine
theory.
if it was, though. But imagine.
Just a weird. Yeah. I mean,
I can imagine Borg's going to class like we saw this movie last week. Oh, and they remember it that way. That's what it said.
Look, you got Brandon Braga and Joe Manosky making this episode. They really are two of the like greats of latter-day Trek. So anything's possible with these guys. Let me get you back into the plot, Elman. Because we're not even really at Act 3 yet. So now the alien ships are really in the great Voyager tradition. They are kicking the Voyager's ass because in the Delta Quadrant, wait a minute, Gamma. In the Gamma Quadrant, everybody can kick your ass. We've got Paris down with these terrible burns. We've got everybody panicking because there are aliens on board, and now these alien ships are very powerful. And suddenly, to the rescue is this giant, clunking, clattering monster of a ship. And Controller Emk comes to the rescue. What did you guys think of Controller Emk?
Well, I mean, you know, in terms of predictability, I mean, there was a little bit of that because you're like, okay, these other guys are bad. This guy's good. He's going to save them and get them out of the void. And you think, okay, well, what's his ulterior motive? And we found that out fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Well played by the actor. I don't know who it is offhand. You might, but it just obviously introduced the primary element of the episode as well, and that, you know, pretty bald-faced contemporary allegation there to toxic dumping and people that are, you know, behind that and reluctant to advance to more ecologically sound practices because it would cut into their profit margin.
Absolutely.
It was again, the last thing you're expecting up in that point in the episode.
Yeah. One of the things that's really great about the modern writing Star Trek, and I guess honestly, John, this has been going on for like 30 years, is they will come up with these sort of, issues that we know, issues from our time, and show them how they're applicable to all kinds of universes, all kinds of people, all kinds of situations. Because, yes, EMC is dumping their antimatter waste. And we also find out that the Federation knows how to neutralize this waste. In fact, they use this waste for more energy. So once EMC, I love when EMC meets them and he's like, I just used 15 flares on you. You're going to pay me for those, right? I love how it's not alien. It's very human. It's very much from our lives. But also it gets us off on the foot where we go, I don't know about this guy. This guy seems like he might be a bad guy.
Yeah, I felt kind of bad. I was being prejudicial as hell. I was like, he's leaking. Probably a bad guy. I was terrible. I should not watch these things unassisted because I was the worst prejudicial person in space. Joe says, it's a very cool story. I don't think this is worth being its own tale, but I do think that I want to see more of this. The idea of, hey, look, we're at this big expanse. We can't go back, so we have to deal with the international waters, quote unquote, about what's going on. I think it's a cool story that does happen, but it gets condensed based on the episode, elements of the episode.
Yeah,
well, I disagree on a minor point there, Flobo, in the sense that I think it could have served as its own episode, just that portion of the conflict. And I'll go a step further. That just like I don't know if you're aware of this, gentlemen, but you might remember a Voyager episode called Year of Hell. It was a 2-parter. They wanted to make that an entire season-long arc.
Oh.
And of course, they got pressured not to. They thought it would have been overkill.
Right.
I think by the same token, this could have easily been at least a multi-episode arc in this void.
A lot of story here. A lot of story, a lot of characters.
And it could have expanded on all these points that were a little bit like the Neelix phobia and this. So what could have been, right? But yeah, I think that these are all just compelling elements and human conditions told in the guise of alien issues. "Quote unquote alien."
Very Gene Roddenberry.
Better served being fleshed out a little bit. So
yeah, Gene Roddenberry would be so cool with that. Yes, okay, Craig. Thank you.
Shout out to Craig.
I say delta when I mean gamma. Do that. It's true. It's true. But
I
Craig,
didn't want to correct it, John, but you're right the first time.
I appreciate everybody, taking it easy on my ego.
Hey, first time I ever got something right, but I didn't say anything. I feel proud of myself. Usually I'm like, oh, maybe, but I knew that one. I get that reference.
So we have a scene. I really wanted to bring up this scene. The scene in sickbay is very important. They do meet the alien. The alien, and he doesn't just lay everything out. That's actually a great thing with both of the aliens that we meet here. So Emk and the night alien, as he's called in the script. They just make statements. They don't explain things. And so to the night aliens, they say he's just here to poison the place. He's been poisoning our space. And they don't know why. Why would Emk tell them anything? So they have no idea what the reasoning is. They just know he's bad. And that gets us into having to meet Emk and having to get more information out of him and finding out what kind of guy he is. So that's interesting. And yet here's another scene that I love. Here we are in season number 5. Chakotay has called Tuvok into the briefing room.
Yes.
And he says, look, you and I have never really been tight. Here, season 5. And I don't think I'd ever realized that Chakotay and Tuvok had never quite been friends. Is this a was this a surprise to you guys at all? I I wonder, am I just so naive that I had assumed that they would have had a relationship up to this point? What do you think, Joe?
Well, we did see conflict in the very first in Caretaker, the first episode. You know, when he turned out to be a traitor to the Maquis.
Good point.
I think the only negative thing I can say about that scene, because it's a great scene, I agree with you there, is that it kind of called to an attention the fact that we were kind of glossed over this conflict up until that point.
Right.
Not that they were sitting there at odds all the time. They work well together because they need to, especially. But yeah. I mean, I wish that the series, at least in its formative years, had done a little bit more with like, okay, well, the Maquis are now part of our crew, so everything's hunky-dory, and we're all just one big happy family now. That could have been extended a lot further.
Yeah.
Made for a lot more stories. And I think we got a taste of that in that great scene. I wish we'd had more prior to that.
I absolutely agree, but I'm pretty sure I asked you to say that. So, so it's very selfish.
I got your psychic wavelength there. Yeah.
Well, I want a second wavelength. What's going on? No, I'm with you guys. I know when we used to write like screenplays and everything, you think about all the characters you have on the table, and you say, how can we use these characters for this episode? And so you try to put what stories that could put these two characters together. And again, Voyager's from a time where seasons were 23 episodes apiece. So there's a lot of content where we didn't have this many interactions. So maybe it was kind of an oversight. Maybe it was kind of, let's really dig deep to these character relationships. But this is the probability of alone that these two characters didn't have that a relationship, good or bad, for that long was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and they're great characters. That's the other thing. These are characters we love to watch. So, very well done that they managed to put that together. We do get a really important story from Tuvok because he is the one who's known Janeway the longest, and Janeway is still still depressed and still kind of distant from everybody. So they're very concerned about her. Tuvok tells us the story about the USS Billings, in which she is the commander. I believe she's number 1 on that one. And she gets some people on an away team. She sends them down to a volcanic moon, and their shuttle was damaged, and they were all injured, or 3 of them were injured. And she feels terrible about it. So she returns to finish the mission all by herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something we see a lot of in Star Trek. I wonder, what do you guys think about this? The captain going down on away teams, the captain doing something dangerous. It comes up a lot in Star Trek. It's always questioned, and it's always, I think, angled for us at home to admire. But if you were running a Federation ship, would you let people do this? Would you be okay with this? We ran into this on Discovery, on the last episode we did, Flobo. Is it okay with these high-ranking officers going, nope, I have to take responsibility, and so I'm going cowboy on this?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well,
Joe?
Roddenberry I think he kind of invented that whole concept with Riker and Picard at the beginning of the Next Generation, because he'd gotten so much criticism from the original series. He says, why the hell are you sending Kirk, the captain ship, on every mundane, away mission, which could result in his death?
Right.
So there was that attempt to address it dramatically, but in terms of a TV show, it's something they had to write around constantly, because that's the prime mover of events in the story.
Right.
So that carries on, as you say, all the way to Discovery, where last week, Michael Burnham is now, and that's very interesting too, by the way, as a quick digression, is that now she's kind of experiencing pushback from the people under her, where she used to do the same thing to her captain.
Right.
So it makes for good dramatic conflict. It's a little inconsistent at times because of the battle of real world storytelling versus the in drama story.
Right.
But it did add definitely an even deeper level to Janeway, knowing that the hell she must go through in the Delta Quadrant. That is the Delta Quadrant, not the Gamma. Because every
I keep looking it up again and going like, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Joe. Please continue.
No, but every time a crewman dies or is injured or whatever bad thing happens in the Delta Quadrant, how much more heavily that weighs on her, not just being the captain, but the fact that she is responsible for them being there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Joe. Like I talk about writing around it. In Discovery, there is that that escape hat being, hey, look, Burnham was here a year before everyone else. She has more experience in this thing. She was out in these streets for like 6 months before the whole crew got there. And even though if you watch the show, if you welcome to SB80, I abhor the Tuvix episode. The cool thing about that one is that Janeway goes, I'm making the decision, and I'm making the decision for it. Even though the actual sentient being's like, no, she goes, I gotta pull that trigger. And I think that's what makes her cool. But being on the wrong end of bureaucracy is nothing very attractive for conversations about best captains ever. But Janeway had to be that. You know what I mean? So it's pretty awesome.
Good point. Yeah, I mean that's a very good point. There are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of captains and top officers in Starfleet, and it just so happens that because Star Trek is about the most interesting stories, I assume, we do get those mavericks, we do get those rule breakers. We know there are plenty of captains out there who follow the book, and they're pretty boring. And they end up being, on one episode, usually being boring. Okay, so we've got our big plot. Our big plot now is that Emk has been using this wormhole. Am I getting this right? Vortex has been using this vortex to come to this godforsaken part of space and dump the hazardous waste, the antimatter waste, and he knows that these aliens are here. He just tries to scare them away and get rid of them. He doesn't care at all that he's poisoning them. And now they have all of these pieces in front of them. They have the night aliens. I'm sorry, there's no better name. I wish they'd given them one. We have the night aliens, sick, and all of them sick and dying because of this hazardous waste. We have Emk, who is saying, this is my business. This is how I make my profit. And we have them going, we should probably do something about this situation. And the solution is probably going to be they destroy this vortex, which will help them cut 2 years off their journey if they can use the vortex. But right now the vortex is being used to harm more than help. So we are now looking at a very touch and go situation. Is the Voyager going to be able to use this vortex to pull themselves out of this or not? We get to the point where the plan is someone has to destroy the vortex, but it has to be done in this particular dead space. And now the story about Janeway and the Billings comes back because she says she's going to take a shuttlecraft. She's going to send her ship through the vortex, and then she's going to blow up the vortex entrance and sacrifice herself. How'd you feel about this scene? How did it play out for you? Let's start with you, Joe.
Well, I think it was one of the most effective scenes in the episode, and actually a very effective scene in further evolving her character, because again, we're going on this whole conflict within herself that she made the decision with the caretaker back at the beginning and stranded them all there and created this, unpredictable journey home, to say the least.
Yeah.
And she's at this point at that scene in Night, she's still not willing to make another such decision. Says, what right do I have to make them endure this thing? Is probably going to drive everybody insane within the 2 years it would take to get through it otherwise. And so it says, you know what? Small sacrifice to make, in my opinion, is I'm going to stay behind and close this thing, let them escape. But you know what? The following scene, her senior staff says, BS, Captain. You're not doing that. We're in this together, and we're going to make the decision with you. and we're going to do this. We're going to take that risk. And I think that
insurrection.
just,
No, I'm just kidding.
An insurrection of the right kind.
On the surface, yeah. On the surface, it is.
Exactly. Well, the mutiny, they're going to hang for when they get back to Federation space, you know. But,
man, did that trigger you as hard as it triggered me when she said, "You know, you could all hang for this," and I'm like, "What?"
I was like, well, you know, Star Trek's racist. No, I'm just kidding. I meant it metaphorically. I didn't actually mean it.
I mean, damn. But yeah, okay. I mean, they're old. Deep down, Starfleet is old-time Navy, so okay, I guess. Yeah. But damn, when she starts talking about hanging people, and she's kidding.
Well, you know, and even though it's not implicitly stated, which I think is even more effective than if they just come out and had dialogue to express this blatantly, you can't feel she has to feel more secure in her original decision to remain in the Delta Quadrant on behalf of the Ocampa, because now she knows that certain things have to be sacrificed and risked for the better good. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Here we go again.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
Thank you.
Another moment that I kind of flew by that I do really want to talk about is, and we were hinting at it earlier, when they show Emk that he doesn't have to be doing what he's doing, that he can use their technology, and they'll even give him a couple of converters just to start him off. First couple are free. And he says, well, this is all very impressive, and I absolutely don't want it because you would put me out of business. So he doesn't want to do the right thing because he wants to keep the business he has, fossil fuel industry. And I'm just kind of blown away by that. Did that affect you guys in any way? Did you get a certain feeling about that?
I was the opposite. I was like, this poor mom and pop shop in the middle of nowhere is getting ran over by big pharma, big energy to change the way they do business. I can't believe it. Prime directive. No,
it was a terrible question. I deserve that answer.
No, it was interesting, but it was kind of sleazy. Like I said, once a guy starts leaking from the face, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, all right, I'm fine. He's a bad guy.
We would have you on board, but it seems you're leaking. and very, okay, so oh my. Okay, so now the ship is going to try to create a strong enough shield behind the ship. They're going to blow up the opening of the vortex, and the explosion will send them through the vortex. That's how I do science. That seems like really bad science to me, but okay. I mean, I understood it, so I'm like the most unscientific person in the world. So that was great. But how about that moment where Emp's ship is fighting off the Voyager. It's pretty much hitting Voyager over and over again. The night aliens come in. They help out Voyager. They're engaging Emp's ship, and then Janeway says, "Well, let's put an end to this. Target their cargo hold, which is full of hazardous waste." And she says, "It's time to take out the garbage."
Oh, what a great line!
How, on a level of very to not very, how dirty Harry is that?
Oh, I was very Dave Caruso in Seaside Miami.
Make my day.
Seriously, there were a couple of moments in this episode where she is so badass early on, when she surprises everybody by just showing up shooting aliens with that big ass rifle. Oh God, I love Janeway. They really did it right in this one. Okay, so they get into the vortex. They blow the vortex up behind them. So long, night aliens. I hope you guys do well. I hope you recover from millions of years of being poisoned. And now they are just floating in a void. And they can't see anything. And then that little star shows up. Allegedly, this was I don't know for sure, but from what I've been reading about this episode, everybody took that to be one of the most emotional moments, one of those most emotional moments in Voyager. Did it work for you? Did you feel it? Did you feel a little something when you started to see space come out through the void?
Well, I do. If nothing, for no other reason, the fact that Neil's going to start wigging out now, he'll stop doing that. So that's a good thing. But I would appreciate that. But I tell you, I think it was emotionally it delivered. Again, going back to a point I made a little while ago, if this had been like a multi-episode arc, think about the payoff it would have been then.
Yeah.
After being trapped in this thing for 4 or 5 episodes or so. But hey, we got what we got, and I think that it paid off really well.
We got what we got.
Yeah.
We're now at a moment too where we get this great shot of Janeway, and she has tears in her eyes. And Flobo, all I could think was those Star Trek Discovery guys who get so mad at how often their
She's supposed to be
cries.
Vulcan. She's a fake sister. I'm sorry, I was triggered. Look, I get it, man.
She's gonna cry again,
She's
isn't
gonna
she?
cry.
I hate that show.
It's not real space. It's one of those things where, like, man, it's very easy to say, why do we care, right? Very easy to say, look, you're supposed to be Starfleet, you're hard to the core, but like you were on this boat, and still at the whole point of this, I'm derailing it. Why not? But one of my favorite documentaries is one PBS did about 10 years ago, and it was called Carrier, and they followed the USS Nimitz, a naval ship, as it went around the Southern Pacific. And at first you're like, it's a Navy. By the end, you're like, people are just tired and worn and being in the engine room all day and going to leave and having relationships with people and regretting it. Like, they were just broken down people when they got back. And so, yeah, I don't want to see crying on my screen either, but it makes sense. Like, get over yourselves. Dang it, Craig, we were cool. What happened?
Craig's being a wise guy. Craig likes doing that. Joe, how did you think about the emotion in the captain at that moment? Good, bad? How'd you feel?
I think if we had seen just a little sly smile of satisfaction on Janeway's face at that moment, it would have been very disappointing. I think the tearful, although subtle, reaction to their being out of their dilemma was very appropriate. And to those naysayers who would say, well, Michael Burnham's always crying, and now we had Janeway. You know what? Male captains can cry too. Kirk reacted when his son was murdered by Krug in Star Trek 3.
Yeah.
Picard cried more than once when he had family, had things going on when he came out of the Borg experience and his brother and nephew were killed. So, they're not made of stone. That's what makes them compelling characters, that they're real people under the surface.
And something
they're effective officers. They do their job as captains, but they're people. They're human.
You guys have taken writing courses as well. Mine were 40 years ago, but you're not going to always see the boring moments. You're not always going to see the moments where the character isn't feeling extreme emotions. The reason why we watch a story is because this is where the story tells us how this character acts under extremes. And okay, I can hear people go, well, yes, but for Burnham to cry every week on Discovery, is that really extreme or is that just normal? And I have to say, look, we've always seen her in extraordinary circumstances. I don't think, people always blame the actress. They always blame Monique Saniqua Green. And, again, actors don't do whatever we want to do on camera. We are directed. We follow scripts. There are producers who might come in and say, change this, change that. So I don't understand people. Joshua Postel, leave it to him.
Oh yeah, no, he's wrong. You ever see TOS? There'd be like total battles. There'd be dead bodies, and I'm like, well, next scene. Like, no one gives a shit in TOS land.
Okay, so now that we've gotten to the end of this episode, I I want to know what is interesting at this point. Sell the audience, gentlemen. And Joe, I'll start with you. Sell the audience on Voyager as a series.
Well, I tell you, John, I mean, this episode in particular, including everything up to that point, but just the episode in and of itself, I mean, virtually every act of the episode brought strong character and situational, development and involvement. Evolvement, I should say. I mean, look at the journey Janeway made through the episode, from the seclusion to the tears of relief at the end. Everybody else, just had great moments. The selling point for the series, as well as this episode bringing it home, just at the very beginning, we thought, well, this is going to be an episode about them getting through this void. Okay, that in and of itself would have been just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, too often in Star Trek, we get the concept like, or we're at Kronos, we can get to Vulcan in a couple hours, 3 hours if there's traffic. I mean,
oh, it got hung up there. Sorry, Joe. We're kind of losing you on that spot. I'm going to jump over to you, Flobo. Flobo, did this make you want to watch more episodes of Voyager?
I would say even if you want to watch more episodes of Janeway, you know what I mean? Especially with Star Trek Prodigy dropping this month. If you guys have Paramount Plus, it's the animated series for teens. So now understanding Janeway more, then it makes me want to see more of that. But I can do a without Neelix. You know how I feel about that. So I overall, I'll say I haven't moved, but I want to see more of Janeway for sure.
Right on. Okay, so now we come to the end of the episode and the things that we do in the end of the episode. Gentlemen, do you have anything in your notes that we did not cover? Flobo, anything on the notepad?
Let's see. Neelix has anxiety. Great. They're in a void. Bro, let's go. Shout out to Void, y'all. This one act, the first act and blackout seems so cheap. Like, dang, why would anyone come out after this ad break? Let's give them a blackout. 2240 has to be the laziest camera shake explosion damage effect I've ever seen in Star Trek. Just like,
Half-hearted, like.
Yeah, it was like, dang, an insurrection. Too bad I was legit looking at my phone when it happened. Why make something so cool so boring? And finally, there's take out the garbage. But where was Captain Proton when you needed him? That's prime Proton time.
Joe, any notes that you had that you want to cover?
Well, I'll tell you, there's I guess it can be in the form of criticism, although again it's unspoken, but I think it kind of spoke well of this character in the sense of development. But the guy that, saying my business will be ruined, I mean, it kind of is indicative of what's going on in the world today in terms of the oil companies. I think you make an excellent point there, John, because the guy could just kept the technology to himself and made a fortune.
Right.
They were offering to give him.
Oh my God, that's a very good point. Like, why did he become that guy?
So give me that, and I'll run with that. At the same time, I get some good PR.
Man, he could have been the Zuckerberg. He could have been the Bill Gates.
Yeah.
What is wrong with him? But
too short-sighted. Only now are the oil companies getting into electric vehicles, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But couple of I don't know if you guys even remember familiar with this, but this is real nerdy stuff. The couple of 47 references. Look for the number 47 a lot in Star Trek.
Really?
So at one point, we had 47 seconds left before something happened, and I think there was some other reference. So just a trivial point there.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that stuff.
And I have to wonder also about these beings. And of course, you have to take some things with a grain of salt and suspend disbelief. But I'm just wondering how semi-human-like beings can evolve in something that doesn't even have planets. I mean, how does that happen? But maybe who knows? Maybe someday we'll learn. I
guess there's a because of the theta radiation, it's really hard for anybody to know what was around there. In the original script, in the original like treatment for this episode, there actually was a planet, and money
okay. That makes more sense.
prevented them from doing a planet, so they just basically had this fleet. I thought the same thing. I was like, really, like there's stuff here, right? We just can't see it because we're so dependent on seeing, not being able to see in the dark. Let's go to tabs. Who opened up interesting tabs during the show?
I have so many. Captain Proton for sure. Bajorian Hespot recipes. George Carlin's soft language. Star Trek, the top 10 best decorative plates. Couldn't look at that afterwards.
JoeTownsel.com is ready for you with stories to chill you right through and through. Tales of terror and fright for your dark winter's night. At JoeTownsel.com, your screams will ring true. There's horror for holidays wrapped with a bow. These books will give shivers high and low. Make your Christmas time weird with the stories you feared. JoeTownsel.com is the best place to go. Joe Townsel brings cheer in so many ways as your beating heart sinks at each jangled nerve phrase.
Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed watching tonight's Vintage Voyages as much as I enjoyed making it 3 years ago. Such fun. I am so grateful to my mentors, John Weber and Flobo Boyce, for having me on that night as my first guest star appearance. Great fun. And you know what? You can look forward to many more Vintage Voyages to come under the banner of Retro Trekkers. So stay tuned. Keep joining us every Saturday. But there are good times to be had now. For example, tomorrow, we continue our month-long Retro for the Holidays celebration. Stocking stuffers, classic clips, commercials, whatnot, anything that strikes our fancy. We're going to be showing you tomorrow night on Retro Rangers Holiday Watch Party. There are clips submitted by you. There are clips that's submitted by us. And I think you'll just have a great time looking at some great holiday memories from years past. Oh, and then for a little bit of mystery, a little bit of Webo mystery, join Mr. Weber for the Webo mystery on Thursday. The Mysterious Traveler. Great character, starring in Christmas Story. Another great holiday pick from Mr. Weber for his Webo mystery presentation. You haven't heard old time radio until it's been presented to you by Mr. Weber, so tune in. And finally, Retro Trekkers will be back in 2 weeks. I think with a trilogy that you're going to love. So more on that. But in the meantime, next week on Saturday, we have a second edition of Joe Townsel's Dread Time stories. The story I've picked for you to read is Take a Picture. Kind of a dark and mysterious, there's that word, a very dark and frantic tale from my Fury Duty collection. It's one of my favorites. I hope it will be yours too. So please, next week, join for the reading of Take a Picture from the Fury Duty collection on Joe Townsel's Dread Time stories. So folks, that about wraps it up for us. We hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I know John did. And until next time, all I can say is this: live long and prosper. Bye now.